and welcome back to Hooked on Hitchcock. This is the season finale. And we're here in Williamsburg, Virginia with my co-host...
G. Larry Butler.
Larry Butler. All right. Hey, how you doing, Larry?
Hey. I'm still alive and still kicking.
That's good. Because if you weren't, you might be a little bit close to Norman's mother.
I know.
You know?
I'm not psychotic yet, but I'm getting there.
We weren't calling your wife pretending to be you.
I mean, fatigue to a point makes you psycho.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm almost there.
And we're here with a special guest who hasn't been on the show yet. Please introduce yourself, sir.
Hey everybody, it's your old pal, the Moo Cow, aka Paul A Presenza from Indie Film Cafe.
So, we're going to begin this show by talking a little bit more, we're going to talk about Psycho, the, I think it was 1960, if I'm correct?
61.
61. Oh, shit. Does that make that, how many years?
60.
60 years old movie, man.
Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
Yay.
That is amazing. It's awesome. I'm glad that we got to do this for the 60-year anniversary.
Yeah.
Paul, well, first of all, before we get into our thoughts with me and Larry, Paul, you've seen this movie countless times.
Oh yeah.
You know, is this one of your favorites?
This is a classic. It's certainly one of my favorite Hitchcock films. It's a classic film, classic horror film, classic slasher film. Pretty much invented the slasher scene. And very artfully done. I love the twists that it has in there. I mean, famously, it's one of the movies that you think you're going to be following Janet Leigh, and instead she ends up getting killed, and that generally wasn't done. There were a lot of interesting little conventions that the movie broke.
Yeah, like nowadays, people would sort of might expect that especially because they have Janet Leigh as the last,
right?
Instead of saying she was like top billed or whatever. Larry, you hadn't seen this movie since it came out?
No, I probably saw it a few years after that, but I mean, it's been probably 50 years.
Wow. Holy shit.
I was a young man.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know if I saw it when it first came out, because I would have been, 11? But maybe soon after that, or I can't remember. But I'd never seen the complete movie until now, I mean, other than the first time I saw it.
Oh.
I may have seen bits and pieces.
Oh, you're saying you saw bits and pieces of it.
On late night TV or something, but not the whole thing. It was a thrill to see it again. But there's parts of it I didn't even recall seeing at all. So I don't know if that's due to my advanced age or or whether they added something. Or we saw the uncut version this time, right?
Supposedly, I didn't see what would have been a cut.
I don't recognize a lot that I hadn't seen before, but it's hard to tell.
There was a couple of scenes that we were like,
we should ask Gus Van Sant, since you figure he's going to know.
Why? Because he made the
shot
remake. Yeah. He's like, I didn't put that in my Vince Vaughn movie. I hated the shot-for-shot remake, honestly, because it was just unnecessary.
Everybody hated it.
They did a shot-by-shot remake of Cabin Fever, and that to me even seemed even more unnecessary, because that film didn't even deserve a remake.
Right.
I love the movie. Don't get me wrong, Cabin Fever, but I just don't think you needed a remake.
Was it a recreation of the shower scene?
No. They did have a recreation of the shower scene, yes, but
more graphic.
No, it's the same. It's shot by shot. It's literally the same thing. It's just no point to it whatsoever.
Dare
they just did it in color.
Sacrilege.
They just did it in color. That was it.
So you actually saw the chocolate syrup.
Well, yeah, they didn't probably use chocolate syrup.
That's what they did. Yeah,
I know, in the original, yeah.
Looks
I'm saying,
like blood.
In the remake, they probably didn't use chocolate syrup.
There wasn't very much of it.
Not really.
I always imagined there was profuse amount, but it was just dribbling.
You're just dribbling,
and he stabbed her, deeply.
Yeah, from a gore and violence standpoint, it's fairly tame by today's standards.
Oh,
I was thinking, this is so simplistic. You know, it's just not. That doesn't do it. Today's audience might be bored at that. The young people that
they'll
expect
definitely be bored of this movie.
gruesome,
Period.
gore.
I mean, there's no even any gore for like over an hour in the movie or whatever. Like
You don't see blood and gut. I mean, you see blood, but not guts.
right? Which is fine with me. I don't need to see that stuff, you know. And in fact, Paul even said he hates, torture porn kind of stuff where people are just killing young women for no reason.
Yes, like Saw.
Like Saul
like that.
and
Like,
Hostel
too
and
much.
stuff like that. Where it's just killing people for no reason except for entertainment.
Well,
value.
I don't. That's the part I don't understand. I don't understand why we as an audience are supposed to find that entertaining. Why would I enjoy to see that?
I
It's
don't know
disgusting.
because there are people who like it, but there are people
Right.
that also
They're
like
frickin'
to
sickos.
to have
Thick. Yeah.
crap put in their mouth. I don't
Yeah.
know, like
Yes, they eat
people are-
dog shit.
Well,
Yeah.
we're talking about a very small minority of people, but all these movies seem to be doing the same kind of thing. This is a way that you can have your thriller, killer stuff, but not necessarily be gory.
right.
You know?
And I like that. This movie inspired movies like Halloween and a lot of other movies that I bet Black Christmas was inspired a
Oh,
little
yeah.
bit by it and stuff like that. So all these films were sort of inspired by
Right.
This
Well,
movie.
see, the thing is that you've already got the way that it's shot done. You've already got the hooks and the surprise. The only thing you can really do to make yourself stand out is to be more violent and more gory. So
Right.
that's what they do.
Right, they've tried to up their game and be competitive with everybody else.
Exactly. Now, like I said, around the same time was what was it? The Peeping Tom, which was also a similar kind of a film, and it actually disturbed a lot of people. But even that movie, by today's standards, is pretty tame. You know, so
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'd love to see some of these, and then later on, even didn't William Castle did something like this, that were similar because it became big. This became a big hit,
Sure.
like this. This is the movie that really put Hitchcock more on the map than he already was. Like he was a huge director at that time, but like this movie like catapulted him into
well,
thing.
what I liked about it is that this was a very different kind of film for Hitchcock. This was not the kind of Cary Grant sort of everybody looks really nice in a tuxedo kind of movie. This was a very, very different film for him. So in a way, he was kind of really branching out into something he hadn't done before. Now, I think Robert Bloch was the writer who wrote this. I'm just wondering if there was just something in his script that he saw that just made him feel compelled to it, Hitchcock, or whether he just because we all know he always had kind of a black sense of humor. If he just said, "Oh, it'll be fun to do
he was
this."
fascinated by Ed Gein, I think, and,
I
and
see.
a lot of those
Okay.
like stuff from what I've understood, and so was Robert Bloch. And if you read the original Psycho book, it's more actual like Ed Gein style kind of thing, and he kind of took it and made it a little bit different, and I think added more of the
it's definitely
psychological element of it that wasn't probably in the book. The book I think was a little bit more straightforward, kind of slasher thing.
Yeah,
but
the Gein thing is really disturbing. I don't know if you've ever read anything about Ed Gein, but he was pretty screwed up. But that's certainly where a lot of the taxidermy comes from.
Right.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre and some of the other films.
Silence of the Lambs and
Ed
things like
Gein,
that.
His whole pathology is a touchstone for a lot of horror films.
Now, would you call this a psychological thriller?
I call it a horror film.
Oh, it is a horror.
Yeah,
I think
it's-
so.
It
too.
is elements of psychological.
We finally agree on that because
Yeah.
we've had this discussion about what's a horror film and what's not a horror film, if you remember one of our last podcasts. But this is definitely a horror film because it's because of the blood, and not just because of the blood, but the and it.
It's a psychological horror film.
Yeah, there's psychological elements to it that I
I mean, it
really
has
enjoy.
thriller and suspense elements, especially like the idea of like will Norman catch, her when she's like peeking around the house and stuff, and then stuff like that, or like or is he gonna? Who's gonna kill who, or what's gonna happen? You know, like because you can already tell from the very beginning when you meet Norman that there's just something a little off with him.
Right, and I like how it's disguised initially as a heist film.
Right.
You know, a poor heist film because the girl who's doing it does such a bad job. She's not a very good thief.
Well,
So, do you sympathize with her when she gets killed, or is it like she deserves it?
We talked about that earlier, and
No.
no, you don't really sympathize that she didn't really deserve it.
Right. She
I
even
don't
says
really,
she's going to take it back, and
you kind of have that feeling of okay, you feel sorry that she's kind of caught up in this.
There's mixed emotions, I'm sure, with the audience.
it's pretty surprising.
Yeah, because she's not a villain.
For a young woman
I
like
mean,
that, I mean, she wasn't totally evil.
And the worst thing is, I think everybody has that, has that idea of you know what? I'm going to take this money instead of taking it to the bank. I'm just going to run off with it. Everybody's had that thought. Just nobody usually acts on it. Nobody usually.
Well,
Yeah.
And you said she was very impulsive, so that
right.
was kind of her thing. She
That's
did
true.
something on.
Usually, most people don't walk around with somebody else's $40,000, but I'm sure
That's true.
if they had the opportunity, there are a lot of people who would do it. But usually, it's the younger people, teenagers, who are that kind of
Right. They
impulsive.
don't consider the consequences.
Right.
And they're pretty stiff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
So was Mother.
Yeah. Mother was pretty stiff.
Right.
So
And
you
was Norman.
earlier you brought up, Paul, that the From Dusk Till Dawn thing, and I started thinking when you were mentioning a heist film, that's sort of how From Dusk Till Dawn starts.
Yep.
It starts with the heist,
Yep.
sort of thing, like a robbery, and then
I
it starts off halfway through. It's like a robbery movie. And then then all of a sudden it's a vampire movie.
I like when a movie sets you up for one thing and it delivers something totally different.
Well, I just remember because I was not alive when this movie got put out in the theaters or whatever.
Yeah.
So but when From Dusk Till Dawn was, I remember my 8th grade substitute teacher that I had. He came in and he told us about this movie he had just seen, From Dusk Till Dawn, that starts out like a heist film and then becomes, whatever, and just blew his mind.
It subverts your expectations, but it does so in a number of different ways. Like I said, you fully expect this is going to be a Janet Leigh movie, but it's not. It's, what's his name's movie? Tony Perkins' movie.
Anthony Perkins.
Anthony Perkins.
Psycho.
Although from the title, you kind of should expect something a little different.
Right.
It was well cast, though, because he was a creepy guy in real life, too. So.
Yeah,
They
you
were
said
right on.
that. What did you hear about him?
Well, I've read about it. Just check him out sometime. And in real life, he was a very creepy guy, and I'd have to review, the stuff that I read, but he didn't end up well in real life.
Aw.
He did some things that got him in trouble. So he was kind of like Norman Bates.
I don't know if
Except
it was that much.
He wasn't killing people, but
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
that
not just
we
that.
know of.
but
Yeah.
yeah. We
Well,
haven't
if he
found
was,
the
he was
bodies
burying them in a swamp
yet.
somewhere.
Yeah, he used a different swamp because
He used
they
a
were-
different swamp just so
never-
he didn't get in trouble. Yeah.
Well, Larry, you mentioned that you had studied some psychology, so I was wondering if
Yeah.
you could talk to us a little bit about the psychology in here, because, like Moody, we talked about how the explanation part at the end is kind of our least favorite thing. It's better. It's a better ending to end at the scene where they unmask him and they just kind of, you go with it there, because it's already achieved everything it's already done. Anything past that feels unnecessary. But
Right.
I understand there's a lot of people, especially back then, who just don't understand what's going on, and so there has to be some kind
Yeah.
of explanation. So
Yeah, I can understand why some people are turned off to that, but it excites me just to hear stuff
Oh, yeah,
like that.
you love that.
I'm back in college again because I studied abnormal psychology, and I got a BA in psych and soc, and blended it into social psychology later on in graduate school. But I'm going to give it here. I'll give it a stab. Anyway, when there's a controlling parent and an impressionable child. And I can relate to my own childhood on this. I'm not going to go into detail, but the mother or father can suppress the child to an extent that they start inculcating. Well, I'm using too many big words. They start incorporating the parents' moral value system, and so that even though they're excited by the opposite sex or whatever,
Right.
they're instantly repressing it, and that builds into a frustration. And also in this particular case, you had a mother and a child that were abnormally close. And so it was almost like an Oedipus complex, like love, kind of.
Oh, there
almost a
definitely
sexual
was,
bond.
yeah.
In the series, you could see that.
Yeah.
And so when she starts dating, he's infuriated because he was very jealous, and then he assumes, of course, because he's jealous, then she's jealous as well. And so when he sees attractive women, the mother takes over and does the killing for him because he feels guilty about being excited by the opposite sex. There's a sexual hunger, but it needs to be punished.
It's
but
like
not to him. She deprives him of what he wants, but she also eliminates that person that
Right.
excites him.
Well, what I'm saying is so that's a multiple personality
Yes.
thing, or I think
in this
now
case,
it's
it's just a
a
split.
dissociative personality.
Dissociative, very good. Yeah, that's right. Because he can he associates, but in a strange way. It's a peripheral way, and he goes more toward the mother than to himself. He can't rationalize what he's doing, or he does rationalize through the mother.
And it's interesting because all of this is to sort of get around social taboos that have been built up in human society for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, and for very good reason. Usually, you do have occasionally people who just say to hell with the social taboos and they commit incest and all sorts of things. The thing is that you pay the price later on genetically because of the offspring that comes from that ends up being, abnormal. So there's a very good reason why we have these taboos.
Right.
So it's an interesting situation how, society, if they're not there to sort of check that sort of thing, you're so ingrained that your own mind turns against you. And that's pretty much what happens there.
And that's where he finally snapped completely and became his mother. He couldn't deal with it anymore.
Right.
So it's a fascinating account. And there's other movies similar to that, like All About Eve, and there's many things like that.
That's a good movie
that I
too.
really enjoyed watching. Psychological thrillers.
And even today, there's movies. There's a great movie that M. Night made called Split, and I love that movie. And it's got, split personality, kind of dissociative disorders kind of stuff.
I think there was a TV series recently by this young woman who played the missionary in the Perry Mason series. She and I worked with her, but she had this multiple personality disorder.
Nice.
I can't remember the name of the series, but they said she was phenomenal.
Good.
Anyway, a lot of people enjoy this sort of thing.
Well, because it's able to play more than one role at a time, and stuff, and so he does it. Norman does it so interestingly because you hear Norman in the house yelling at his mother, and his mother's voice, but it's obviously Norman. But when we hear it, it sounds like it's another woman, and it's another woman's voice,
dubbed it or whatever.
Yeah, because it definitely did not sound like that was coming out of Anthony Perkins' mouth.
That would be good to research.
There's some level of guilt that's on him too, because remember when we first talk or hear the sheriff talking, he says that there was a poisoning, that there was a murder-suicide, that the mother poisoned the second father, and then killed herself.
The lover.
Oh no! And then as it turns out, during the explanation, he's like, "Oh no, Norman killed her."
He did. Well, in the TV version of it, he turned on the gas and killed him that way. It was
a little bit different, and I liked that though, because we didn't want to watch the whole thing over again. We didn't want the shot for shot remake like we already had. You know what I mean? Yeah. We have something prequel that kind of explains things a little bit more and whatnot. So
yeah. So in the series he has a brother, but they didn't bring that up, and that was just something totally tangential.
Yeah, there's that was also just to give you another character, or whatever in that movie, that series. In series, they need more than like that. in a movie like this, I don't think they're ever. Now, I mean, don't quote me because I've never seen the prequels or the prequel or the sequels of the Psycho movie, so I don't have a clue if maybe Norman actually did have a brother or not, and that was actually brought up in the other
It's
movie.
very interesting. I think I also mentioned too that the later sequels with Anthony Perkins, they did a number of them, and the second one and the third one were actually pretty decent films. Clearly not the same level as Alfred Hitchcock, but very interesting. They especially make Anthony Perkins' character a little bit more sympathetic than I would have expected.
I think Anthony Perkins even directed one of them.
Yeah, he did.
So.
But he became very deeply disturbed later in life.
Later in life, he wasn't disturbed before he made this movie. Maybe this movie made him like...
It probably pushed him over the edge.
Yeah, a little bit, because, you have to play a role like that,
That's the thing, especially for him, because he kind of got typecast.
Yeah.
And he could never really escape the shadow of Psycho, and that was problematic for his career.
I think it was method actor, too. So
right. Oh, God, that's even worse. It's like Heath Ledger style.
He was trapped. Yeah.
Well, I mean, Well, when you get trapped and you kind of play that role, then you have to keep digging deeper and deeper into that thing. And, just imagine you as an actor, Larry, if you had to play a character like that.
I have.
You've played a character like Norman?
I played a movie that was never released. And somebody has the copy of it, and one of these days it was called Night Terrors, and the middle part was called Stew, and I was in that. There was it was an
anthology.
Vignettes.
Yeah,
the guy telling bedtime stories to his family. So I played a cannibalistic hillbilly that had a grocery store, and people would stop by, and it goes that's kind of in the woods. It's kind of a remote area where there's just not many people stop by. But when they do come in, I go, "You want to buy some stew?" And it's human flesh in the stew. And if they don't buy it and take it with them, then I tie them up in the back room and torture them and cut them up, and they become stew. So it's a phenomenal piece. It's probably my best work ever. But because the person who owned it ran away with the money and the rights, we weren't able to distribute it.
Did you turn a guy named Stu into stew? Here's some stew.
Yeah. But anyway, someday.
So you've been stewing about it ever since.
I'd love people to see it someday.
I would love to see it.
The way I can get that out, I will.
There's got to be a way.
There's got to be a way.
Not the whole movie, just that part.
Yep.
And even if it's just a fraction of my, it's like maybe 45 minutes, my whole part, or 40 minutes. It's just a third of the film. But anyway, that was a person who was very deeply troubled too. And the reason I'm talking like this is because you asked me, if I had ever been involved in this. And yes, they had me in a cabin, and they fed me beef and kept me away from everybody else. And I became completely, because I'm method, I became completely nuts.
Are you a method actor?
Completely, yes.
Oh, I did not know that.
I always use real emotion.
Couldn't
That's
you
why
tell?
I'm exhausted.
I can tell he's a great actor. I can't tell he's method.
No, it's not fake. All emotions. If I say, I hate you, God damn it, I hate you.
At that particular moment?
It's real hate.
When you see Al Purple, you could tell that's method.
Yeah.
So anyway, I mean, on your shoot too, I was real stuff. I was really pissed at him.
Yeah.
My other actor. So yeah, I became a nut job on that. They had to keep me away from the cast and crew, and so it was almost too much to do. But I got through it.
Good.
But it took a lot out of me, and a lot of method actors go through that. Val Kilmer took it home and scared his family, and so anyway.
You taught acting though, didn't you, for a number of years? So did you teach the method, or did you do something else?
I taught kind of a middle road. I said never fake anything, feel it. Mm-hmm. But I didn't say stay in character. Just when you're on set and they go action, release the emotions connected to your role and what's required for that scene. Don't just fake it, because people can see your wires, It's like a mannequin or puppet. So people will pull back because people are emotionally constipated. They want to relate to you vicariously through your real emotions, because a lot of people are stunted. I just use constipated. I don't mean in a bad way.
Oh no, I've heard you say it before, so I love it.
It just gets people's attention. But
it's a
dig
good
down.
Yeah.
Dig into the reservoirs of pain, even joy or misery, or the negative, the positive. But feel it.
I had
Don't stop it.
I had a friend of mine who was who is an actor, and she had classes. She did classes or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things they would teach you is like, say you wake up in the morning, and say you wake up happy, you have to automatically make yourself angry. Or the exact opposite feeling, of that.
Right.
And you have to feel that way throughout the day.
There's different exercises.
Well, and that does not make a good time with people, because if people are really upset because they were whatever,
that's what is it called, Meisner stuff, and I don't subscribe to that necessarily. I'm just saying, when you're required to have emotion, give it.
And that's kind of where I was going with this as far as teaching goes, because and I've heard the way method acting is taught, and I've seen videos and all that stuff, but what they don't really tell you is how to unwind and pull back from that.
That's true.
Because there's a price to be paid by keep delving into those kinds of emotions and feelings and running with it and feeling it, because you can't always do that in our society. You have to be able to separate yourself at some point.
Yeah.
And there have been a number of actors who were unable to to unable to do it successfully enough, and that causes problems with them later on.
Yes.
Right. Just like I was saying, Heath Ledger actually killed himself because he took the Joker way too far, or whatever. And because
there's so many of those.
Even Jack Nicholson told him not to.
Look at Nicholson.
Well, Nicholson
in The Shining.
but
that wasn't method.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was method.
Yeah, he was way off. Way over the bend. Now, Laurence Olivier told Dustin Hoffman, can't you act, my dear boy? Everybody thinks he's a brilliant actor, but he was an actor.
Right.
It's from theater. And so he was more phony than anybody. But
right.
Everybody thinks he's brilliant. I don't know.
You don't think
in certain ways.
This
but
is
he
Olivier
had tricks.
or Hoffman?
No, Hoffman. He doesn't.
Olivier. He was, but he put it on layers. Layer by layer. And he never felt the emotions that he exhibited.
Oh, okay.
But Dustin Hoffman was out all night screaming and hugging trees.
The traditional Shakespearean English style of acting looks down on method and Meisner and stuff like that. It's a very different system, a very different thing.
Oh, they're so arrogant. Oh, I walk the boards, my dear fellow. Yes, you've never walked the boards. The boards in the theater stage. Right.
Yeah.
Well, to go back to acting a little bit too, pulling back, Janet Leigh, her time in there, we saw her paranoid half the time, right? She had to the whole time she's freaking out.
Freaking out at Hitchcock.
What?
Maybe she was freaking out at Hitchcock.
Who knows? Hitchcock's been known to kind of drive actors crazy,
especially
because females, because they, he makes them do take after take after take until he gets it, until they get it right. And
he's a cruel streak.
I try not to do that, but sometimes you have to take after take after take just to make sure, if somebody stumbled on the line.
If you're not getting what it is you want.
Exactly.
If it's not from a real place.
Right.
Famously, Stanley Kubrick tormented Shelley Duvall until he got what he wanted for The Shining. And it's a terrible thing, but then you look at the film and she's freaking brilliant in that, because she had to go deep, deep, deep inside of her.
The best advice I ever got from director is, Larry, I don't believe you. It's I got it. I got it.
Oh.
That means you use real emotion. Even I at times can lapse, but he said, I don't believe what you're doing.
Well, there you go.
Make me believe it.
Make me believe it.
And if you don't believe it, nobody else is going to believe it. Right. You have to be in the moment.
I forgot who it was, but William Wyler, the famous director or whatever, that's also kind of like Hitchcockian kind of director. He, this actress got so upset because they did 50 takes, if not more, and she was just breaking down, and she was like, how many more takes do I need to do? And he goes, until we get it right. Keep doing it.
True.
And, and it is, it is tough as an actor, because
it's not an easy job.
From what I understand, and I don't know the exact number, but I think The staircase scene in The Shining was 124 takes.
Oh, Jesus.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
That would be exhausting, especially with with her screaming and with Nicholson acting crazy the whole time.
It's a serious sacrifice when you to go through that kind of experience to put it up on film. But the result is fantastic. So I completely understand where Kubrick is coming from.
But then you get directors like Michael Cimino who did Heaven's Gate, and they went over budget, and they and they did, and he was like, there was one time he was waiting for the sun to go down at this exact moment so that he could get this exact thing, and like that becomes, if you become too much a perfectionist, you are, like, to me, you're just, I don't know. I just don't like it.
I can understand that. The other guy who was famous for waiting for days and days to get the exact same sunlight shot or sunsets, that's Akira Kurosawa. Yeah. And he's another guy that makes nothing but masterpieces. So I get it. I get it.
But would you consider Heaven's Gate a masterpiece?
I'd say Heaven's Gate is a wannabe masterpiece. It failed, unfortunately.
No.
It could have been.
I had to read that book when I was studying acting, and my acting teacher
required
reading.
Are you saying the book that's based on
the movie?
Okay, yeah.
I forget what it's called, but probably Heaven's Gate.
I remember it was like Heaven's Gate into the blah blah blah, something like it was about Heaven's Gate. Yeah, I remember. I've never read it, but maybe someday I will, because I think it's a
fantastic failure.
Yeah, and I saw the documentary. There's a documentary on the Heaven's Gate Blu-ray, and it's just fantastic.
They had like 36 hours of footage.
I know.
And that's the thing. I mean, as good as Michael Cimino was, he's not Akira Kurosawa, and he's not Stanley Kubrick. There's a very, very rare people who can do that sort of thing.
Exactly, and but the Deer Hunter rivals movies like that.
And the thing is that even those guys weren't them initially. It took years for Stanley Kubrick to become who he was, and for Akira Kurosawa to become who they were.
But most of them, admired and loved Hitchcock.
Yeah.
Like, Hitchcock was the one who kind of inspired people. Like, I don't know, it was Hitchcock and Orson Welles. Those two guys in America that were, obviously, Hitchcock was British originally, but then he came over to America and started, kind of changing the landscape of,
I think he maintained his British, personality pretty well.
Yeah, a lot of his comedy too was very bawdy and stuff. Even like Psycho had some remarks. Like, I absolutely love the guy. There's two characters I love. The Tex, I think he's like Texas, the cowboy, rich guy in the beginning of the movie that has the $40,000.
Oh yeah, he was good. Yeah,
and he was just fantastic. I loved him. Yeah. And then I loved the private investigator, Arbogast.
Martin Balsam's awesome.
Yeah.
They had a lot of A-listers. In the very end, the psychiatrist guy, I knew him from somewhere else. Yeah. It wasn't like Highway Patrol or something.
Right.
But, it wasn't Matthew Broderick or anything, but it was somebody else.
Well, I would hope not. Matthew. I don't even know Matthew. Your time. Matthew Broderick was even alive in 1961.
I'm sorry, it was somebody else.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
But yeah, no, it was amazing. There were so many great people in this movie, and this movie is by far my favorite Hitchcock film. I chose it as our last movie for the season because we were doing a lot more lesser known movies first, and we want to save the other ones, the bigger name movies for the last.
Harry.
Trouble with Harry was, we did that already. We did that.
Very nicely done.
We did Suspicion. We did, Lifeboat.
Yeah, Lifeboat was great.
Shadow of a Doubt. Just so many. All Strangers on a Train. So many great this season.
Bad movies.
He's made some bad movies. Really? I'm not gonna lie.
Have we got to them yet?
We haven't got to them yet.
Okay.
I didn't want to do one in the first season, but
did he do Arsenic and Old Lace?
No.
Okay.
But he did Mr. and Mrs. Smith, which was a comedy.
Smith, yeah.
Boy, did they didn't do too many comedies.
He did not, but he did. Every movie he does has comedy in it, which dark comedy generally.
I actually like his earlier films, like The Lodger.
We just watched
We
The
just did
Lodger.
that.
We just
Yeah,
did that.
it's
And
very
it was,
interesting.
it was interesting, but it was also, I don't know, we weren't all,
It's a little primitive.
it was a little
But,
primitive.
You know,
yeah. Oh,
we
yeah.
understand it's one of his first works. So
Yeah.
And
it's
didn't
fun.
he do a number of silent films?
He did. He
Yeah,
did
in the
about
20s.
he did about 10, I think.
Are you
something
going
like
to
that.
cover any of those?
The Lodger is
The Lodger
one of
already
them,
did,
but
there'll be more, probably.
we'll cover more. I want to do
Yeah.
like blackmail and murder and.
If we do them all, you'll cover them all. And
Well, yeah. I
hopefully
mean,
we have access.
I'm gonna probably have to put 2 or 3 silent ones in per season, because if we do like, my hope is that we get to like 6 seasons at least, and
Can't do Rebecca.
we could do Rebecca,
We already
because
covered Rebecca.
yeah, no, but we could recover it again and do a different
All right.
perspective,
All right.
I
We did that
think
on Criterion Watch.
we've done a couple on Criterion Watch, because Joe and I had done Foreign Correspondent, and I definitely want to show Larry that eventually.
See, I want to do 39 Steps. That's the one that I
We did.
We
We did
loved
that.
that one, yeah.
We did that one.
That's
Yeah.
one of
That
my
was
favorites.
great.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
Espionage,
Yeah,
So-
I love his espionage movies.
And I still think, like, even if we do, that we could still do that for like Criterion Watch, because it's just a different, there's different perspectives on it. and
But there are
everything.
certain ones, like I know everybody loves Rear Window. I was bored with Rear Window.
I
just
was
thought it
bored in the beginning with
bored.
Rear Window, so
didn't
that's
care.
one of the ones I'm not really that excited to do, but it's going to be one of the ones we do later, because, for like one of the last episodes of the
Just felt
seasons.
very contrived.
Because everybody knows it, everybody loves it, and it's one of the more popular movies. North by Northwest, everybody loves. Vertigo, everybody loves, and I honestly was bored by Vertigo in the beginning too. It's just, it starts out really slow.
And the Boyds.
What?
The birds.
Birds, yeah, the Boyds. I love the and once again, I didn't really get a chance to see the birds until like later in life,
See,
and I loved it.
that was the first Hitchcock movie I saw, and it scared the shit out of me.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't.
Never
definitely
saw
didn't
a
scare
bird the
me,
same
but-
way.
And then, well, no, but then later on, when I was like maybe 13, I saw it, and by then I was in love with Suzanne Plachette, so I was at a very different part of my life at that point, and
That's why
I
you
didn't
watched it.
care about the birds at that point. I'm like, wow, that's the Bob Newhart girl. She's gorgeous.
Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, and look, Janet Leigh did such a fantastic job, but so did Vera Miles, who took over for basically the greatest thing about this movie is half the movie's Janet Leigh and the other half's Vera Miles. Like she becomes the star with Sam Loomis. They become like the investigative crew and everything. And they sort of had like I felt like they had a little bit of chemistry together, those two and everything when they're looking around for the pretending to be wife and husband
Yeah.
and stuff. I just thought it was cute because they're both
Yeah.
trying to find her, but
Right.
they also sort of you can kind of tell maybe they
Yeah,
might
they
be
didn't want to
something
lean
more.
too far in that direction because that would have kind of spoiled it. But
Would it?
Because his girlfriend had just died.
right.
You
I
know,
get
and
yeah.
flirting with her sister.
Yeah, he didn't flirt with her, but
No, but
Yeah.
that's why they didn't want to.
they didn't want to do that. It would have been.
But I can see, they did have chemistry.
They did. You could sort of tell. And, maybe that was just the actors, or whatever.
And
but-
I have to point out, I think there's probably more actual flesh scene in this film than any other Hitchcock film that I can remember. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
Sam Loomis, first thing you see, he's got no shirt on. Janet
wearing a
Leigh's
bra.
running around in a bra all the time in
Yeah.
the shower.
Mm-hmm.
That was also very different for
He
Hitchcock.
liked to break tradition. He did. He wanted to push the boundaries.
Well, at that point, I think things were changing
Oh,
for,
sure.
times, It was, and it was
Oh, in the
showing
60s?
that.
Yeah.
So they were ready to
Sure.
kind of explore different things on film that
Yeah.
they could not explore before. And from what I've understood, and I have an actual book called like The Making of Psycho, or whatever, and also have Janet Leigh's book about the making of Psycho. So I absolutely love it. And then in the making of Hitchcock or making of Psycho is actually what spawned Hitchcock, the movie that Anthony Hopkins, was in, where he played Hitchcock.
The early to mid 60s was kind of a forgotten golden age of horror films, a sort of golden revival of horror films. There were a lot of great horror films that were done at that point that were not like the original 30s Universal films. They went in a very different direction. And when people talk about the golden age of horror, they kind of overlook the early to mid 60s, but there was a lot of great stuff that came out. Some of the best horror movies ever came from that period. Yeah.
So I want to go back a little bit. We were talking before about the psychological elements of everything, and I kind of meant you kind of like had thought about it before, but Ed Wood, which is one of our favorite like B movie directors. He did Plan 9 from Outer Space, Bride of the Monster. We also did a little movie called Glinda or Glinda, which actually talked about transvestitism and and cross-dressing and
transsexualism. In that respect, because there was the whole operation that was the whole point was the Christine Jorgensen story is what it was supposed to have been.
Right, but then it became more of a personal story.
Right,
about
he changed it more about him
himself. Yeah, about Ed Wood. Ed Wood liked to dress in women's clothing.
It was supposed to be about the first surgery, that was actually done.
But so it was sort of funny. This was sort of a mainstream horror version of Glitter Glinda in my mind, because Glitter Glinda did terribly. Like nobody wanted to see it because it was too like documentary style. Like it wasn't. It wasn't a real movie. Bela Lugosi was in it as the like puppeteer or whatever.
Pull the strings.
Right. He kept saying pull the strings, and stuff, and he was like the god of the whatever character. So anyway, the point is that there was. Are you okay?
No, I'm fine. I'm sitting here wondering if you've seen Ed Wood movies. Have you seen them all?
I've seen it. No.
What a great series. We should watch all the Ed Wood movies with G. Larry Butler. How interesting would that be?
It would be different. It's,
it would.
Ed Wood,
We could do 12 movies.
I don't think we could do 12 movies. No, because then you go into the porn, and
we're
not going
but they're
into
not
porn.
real porn.
No, but even then, I'm not going into that. We would only watch like 5 or 6.
Boo.
And those are the real movies that he did. That he tried to really make, including Jailbait, which was pretty bad. So anyway, it was funny because I bet Ed Wood was a fan of Hitchcock, right? And then here it is in the 60s. He's probably, I think at that time, he's making porn. At that time, or about to go into it. I think he was doing like Sinister Urge and everything. And then there's this movie called Psycho that sort of, like overtakes it. It's kind of funny.
Only on the Indie Film Cafe Network can you hear a podcast where we're talking Hitchcock and Ed Wood in the same program.
Yes, it only happens on the Indie Film Cafe Network, of podcasts. But I always bring that up because I actually thought about it when I was watching it, going, especially the end where he's explaining everything. It felt very Glinda Glinda.
Yeah. I've always had a problem with that.
Right, and Larry was like, telling he was really intent on listening to that.
Yes, I'm fascinated by the psychological
at
stuff.
the very end, maybe if it was just length, or if it was shortened considerably. I do like the final image where they're pulling the car out and you're seeing the rear end of the car coming out of the muck. I do like that. However, the real impact happens in the scene where they unmask, quote unquote, Norman Bates for who he is. And the rest just kind of seems anticlimactic at that point.
Well, and once again, it was because back then they didn't have... Nobody would have understood what the hell just happened.
And that sort of thing I don't think would be done today.
Right. Well, maybe if we couldn't... sometimes there are movies where they have to explain what's going on because the audience just wouldn't understand
I
it.
can't think of a single modern film that's done that successfully, though.
Right.
Well, The Exorcist kind of explained it. It could be a psychological disorder.
But it was very, very, very short.
Yes, it was truncated. That's true.
Yeah. So who knows? Maybe that's what. I don't know. I thought it was just a problem is it's just too wordy, And so after a while, you're just like, you just saw something crazy happen, and you're like, oh my
Right.
God. And then you think that's it. They're going to cut to
Right.
black or something. And then all of a sudden, it's Norman in the hospital. He's already, like, his whole thing's just turned all over to his mom.
As a modern audience, we're sort of used to the big, quick, flashy ending like that. We're not used to having exposition man come in at the end and explain everything, and that's pretty much what the psychiatrist is at that point. He's exposition man. He's there to explain what happened in the past that set up everything, and to sort of connect all the dots that somebody in the audience didn't do.
Because we didn't understand that, probably. And you even yourself, because you hadn't seen it in a while.
Because I'm tired and, I've forgotten, I went to school 50 years ago.
And
so
I've often
it
wondered
took me a while to figure it out.
If that's, because that's the kind of thing that, without other directors who don't have that sort of creative control, a studio exec might come in and say, look, you need to tack on this extra bit explaining stuff, because otherwise people are going to be like, what the hell did I just watch it?
Yeah.
I don't understand. I don't know that anybody at that point had that kind of pull on Hitchcock, but maybe somebody suggested it, or maybe he felt later on that it needed to be explained.
That's possible. One of the studio bosses.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I knew what was happening, but I couldn't enunciate it to myself. And then finally, when they started explaining it, I thought, that's it.
That's it.
That's exactly what I wanted to say, but I couldn't find the words.
Yep.
Right.
And because you were, absolutely. That's what you were saying when I heard you, and you were just like, hey, yep, that's it.
And the other thing is that it doesn't really address some of the deeper psychosis that's going on with him, because I don't know whether you noticed, but after she sees the corpse for what it is, or what Mother is, and she's screaming, and then all of a sudden there's Norman in the Mother costume with the knife. He has a big, big smile on his face.
Right.
He looks like he's about to enjoy himself. And while they talk about the reasons why he's killing stuff and all that, that's a whole other problem right there, is that he's enjoying it. He's getting something out of it.
Yeah, good point.
Yep.
Could be satanic glee. I don't know, but that's a good point, because it did look a little unnatural.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
it should be a jealous rage. Right?
Exactly.
You keep saying, Paul, that was your favorite scene, or one of your favorite scenes in the movie is the big reveal, I guess. And I always thought it looked too hokey. Like, period. Like, the turnaround with the mother looked too slow at one point, and I was just like, wait a minute, what's going on? Like, why is this too slow? Like, nobody would do it that, right? And then when he grabs the Norman's face and expressions just did not look right. They just looked too over dramatic, and I never liked it. I always felt like it was not. This was, but then again, we saw Strangers on a Train recently, and there's some scenes that just don't hold up today. As like maybe that's what they had to do at the time. Because, but like if they were making it today, it would be a completely different look,
I do love in the reveal when she turns around and she kind of goes in and she goes, there's that little extra at the end that I like. It's like a little exclamation point.
The mother?
Yeah.
That's funny.
It cracks me up.
Yeah, it's a great scene. But also the scene that actually scared you, I remembered it.
Yeah.
I actually heard you jump.
That's why I don't sit with anybody, because I flail. I have a startle response from my PTSD. So, my wife sits on the other end of the sofa because I slap people.
You were like,
Why? How did I sit next to you during a Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers and you not flail around?
Yeah, that
was a little different.
Kettle of fish.
All right, so but there's the scene that we're talking about is like Norman is dressed up as the mom, and the investigator's walking up the stairs, and then the door opens up, and it's a great shot. It's like a crane shot kind of thing, where you see the whole area, and he comes running out and stabs him I think 3 times or something, or actually probably more, bunch of times.
But it's interesting because it's problematic now for a lot of filmmakers. You can't really surprise the audience so much anymore. You could back in 1961. 1960 when this was created, because it was just a lot more innocent back then.
They were innocent.
It's
yeah.
a very different bowl of fish now. I mean,
Now-
we went and I showed you the Void, which I thought was a really good film.
And you said you don't like gore? My God, it was
Well,
the goriest son of a bitch I ever saw
That
in
was
my life.
pretty gory, but it wasn't torture porn. But
Ugh,
the thing is,
torture to me.
you kind of see what's going to happen. There's not a whole lot of because there's not much you can do to surprise the audience at that point. I still think it was a good movie. It's just you can't really do it in that way anymore, because
Right.
the audience is too sophisticated. They have already seen a million horror films.
And
Good
people
bad.
look for bloopers. Like
Right.
one of you pointed out, there's no blood on that knife. I think Hitchcock made
Yeah,
a mistake there.
We caught a couple of error.
He's known for being methodical. He spends days on certain things. And
Well, you also noticed there was like something with the
car.
the car too, yeah. And so there's a couple continuity issues. Which I'm sorry, your monkey's not around. I don't know where he is. There wasn't any TNA for my monkey, so
Almost. There was a blurry T.
almost, yeah. There was a little bit blurry of a side boob sort of thing, but you can really see it, and that was good that they were able to.
And I'm willing to bet that was probably crystal clear when it was shot, and they went back in and blurred it for it to get past the censors. boards.
Right.
Sure.
Originally, when they
Yeah.
made the movie or whatever to do
Yeah.
it, is like, if Hitchcock had his way, I'm sure he would have left it in. Right? Leave it in. The audience is ready for it.
Yeah. But yeah, the reveal scene I love, and then the other scene I love is the close up on the eye. In fact, I wrote a short film where the beginning image is a dead eye, and you don't know what it is until it already pulls back and it goes around and around and around, and then finally you see it, and there's water in the eye. And it wasn't until later I'm like, oh, now I know where I got that image from. From Psycho.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was great images, very well shot. The music, we forgot to talk about the music, and the music was done by Bernard Herrmann, who Richard Band later ripped off.
Copied or
Ripped
homaged, whatever you want to
Ripped
say.
off on Reanimator.
But Richard Band's version's a little more jaunty, I gotta give him that.
I know, but it's like every time I hear it, I think of Reanimator now, not
know.
Psycho, which is weird. It should be the other way around.
That's what they were trying to do. You like Psycho? Well, we're stealing your sound memory from you.
Yeah, exactly. Which maybe that was. I mean, if we ever interview Richard Band, we got to ask him, like, I don't know if he gets that all the time, but like...
I'm sure he gets that all the time.
Yeah, he has to be asked about the Psycho
But, making music is a very different thing. Sometimes you can be very, very influenced and not even know about it or remember it until it's done, and then later on it's like, oh, shit, yeah.
Right. But that music was very iconic. The theme song to Psycho, and especially the scene where she's where Norman is killing Janet Leigh, like Marion Crane. He's like, re, like people do that. People just say re, and you know exactly where it's from.
Right,
You know?
and all I can think of is, okay, they didn't sing the exact sound, but it's the same sort of thing that you get in, the Crystal Lake and Jason and all that.
Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
Right, which, I mean, obviously when, was it Harry Manfredini who did that music, probably loved Psycho and other movies like that, and, listened to what that would sound like and did his own kind of
But
thing.
I tell you, it just goes to show you, having a great soundtrack makes the movie even more memorable. And one of the reasons I love The Shining so much is because it's got a brilliant soundtrack. The Paderewki and all the different composers that he pulled for that is just amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
Interesting that we brought up Shining a couple times. We brought up a couple other filmmakers. A lot of them, I mean, Stanley Kubrick had to be a Hitchcock, fan or whatever. Like, Kurosawa, I wonder if Kurosawa was, I know Truffaut was. They even did a whole book together, and everything, like an interview, It's wonderful.
Kubrick was a fan, but I don't know that he was the kind of fan that would have done any kind of an homage or anything like that, because Stanley Kubrick came up as a photographer and cinematographer, and everything he did was from a visual perspective, and that's how he constructed all of his films. And I think Alfred Hitchcock was very, very different in the way that he did his. Now he is known for having a lot of really good visuals. But I noticed in this film too, there were a few that I didn't think were that good. There were a couple of times when the characters are speaking in shadow.
Yeah.
And I couldn't see them, and it didn't add anything. It was just more annoying. I'm like, could you turn the light on so I could see what's going on there? And there were a couple other ones that it just seemed unnecessary.
Well, I think that had to be a choice.
Sure.
I think so, because he's smarter than that.
Yeah.
Sure.
So he must have
Wasn't a
said to
mistake.
himself when he was doing it, this is gonna piss off Paul. So I'm not.
That's the
do that.
mystery, maybe.
Well, I guess it's to make it seem more sinister, but you don't really need it at that point.
Yeah, because what they're talking about isn't the sinister plot of the
Exactly.
story. Like if it were Norman talking to Marion Crane in the dark, like that would give you this feeling of like, oh, what's gonna happen here? Right, when it's the boyfriend and the sister talking to each other. You're like, yeah, why? Yeah.
And I mean, I can see where he's probably going. Is like, well, they're in the dark because they're in the dark. And
Oh, I don't think he's that on the nose,
right.
though.
Exactly.
I don't think he's that like.
Exactly, and it doesn't work in that case because
Yeah. I just But you did say you really liked the shot of the window.
Yes.
In the beginning of the movie.
The iconic scene with the house in the background and the walkway going up to the house.
Oh, no. I was talking about in the hotel.
And then,
the hotel going in through the window.
Yes, that's a favorite. And that's the kind of thing that, that's why I really love Gaspar Noé. If you look at his films, Into the Void and Irreversible and things like that, he does a lot of those kind of camera tricks where you're following the camera through physical objects.
Well,
and
John Carpenter did some of that stuff with
right.
Halloween. But, I was thinking, like, when they went through the house or whatever, that it was, that it was sort of reminiscent. I don't know which one came first, but Rear Window did that too. At one point you saw all the like the apartment complex, and then you kind of go up to the room that Jimmy Stewart's at, and he's watching everybody, and everything. So there's some shots that he sort of kind of uses. It becomes kind of a staple. Plus, we saw Paul saw him first. We were kind of talking. And then Paul saw Hitchcock. So
Hitchcock.
Spotted Hitchcock.
Yeah, I always look for him. He's in almost every film, but they said he's been in half of his films as that. I don't know when he started doing it.
I think it's more than that. I think it's more than that because
half that he's credited with, but I'm sure he's managed to get himself.
I don't know when he started doing it.
Yeah, in the Lodger.
Sure, right off the bat.
Right. Well, you saw him in the Lodger.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So I think he did it. I think we discussed it in the last episode, but he did it as like it was out of necessity originally because like there wasn't enough people, so he did it there. But then he was like, let me just keep it going. But then he also started doing it in the beginning of all of his films because he didn't want people to try to have to be looking for him.
I've often wondered if it was kind of like one of those things like, well, I never got to be an actor, but maybe I can just fulfill a little bit inside me by doing this.
Nowadays, people just act and direct, or whatever.
They star.
They star.
Or the whole thing. Tommy Wiseau, we're looking at you. Neil Breen, we're looking at you.
Yeah. But then, those are vanity projects.
Yeah, of course.
And
we won't mention any names.
But hey, some people can do it. I mean, let's look at Orson Welles. Orson Welles was the king of that, writing, directing, and acting.
Yep, writing, directing, and acting. And from what I've understood, Janet Leigh worked on Touch of Evil too. So I believe so. I believe it was Janet Leigh. So.
And people don't credit Orson Welles enough with his visuals. He's got some amazing visuals.
Oh no! I mean, Citizen Kane has some,
especially.
And Touch of Evil, the first 10 minutes of that movie with the crane shot, and everything. I mean, just amazing. He's such a fantastic director. So I love all of them. But like, it's one of those things you watch. You watch Psycho and you're just like...
I'll have to show you Orson Welles' Macbeth. It's really, really good. It's one
of
my
you got
favorites.
them from Criterion, I believe. So I saw you have that.
That's one of the movies I've had in every form for years. It's just one of my favorites. It's very visually compelling.
Well, we're getting to that time at the end, but Wow, this is the end of the first season.
We did it.
We did it. We made it. High five. Yes, that's awesome.
Yay.
Woo!
Thanks for having me on.
Yes, for sure. And if you want to catch me and Paul on Indie Film Cafe, which is our main thing, is the thing that launched all of this stuff.
Flagship show.
The flagship show. That happens almost every Monday, or whatever. So we got twice a month, if not more.
We'll be hitting the movies that are the opposite end from Hitchcock and Kubrick and those kinds of guys.
I know Gamebox 1.0, even though it wasn't it's not Hitchcock, it's not bad,
Oh yeah, we do occasionally good films. I mean, say what you want about Faster Pussycat Kill Kill. That was a well done movie.
Gave that a low score.
That was a well done movie with some good visuals too. People forget about that.
So yeah, this definitely is up there with fantastic, but even as fantastic as this film is, you can still find flaws in it, which kind of just goes to show you that not every filmmaker is perfect. I bet Stanley Kubrick, I bet you can find flaws in The Shining, but you can. I
don't know about that. It's just about a perfect film.
I don't know.
Unless you're Stephen King, he hates it.
Well, he has a different reason for hating it.
Yeah, he got trumped by his own material. That's why he hates it.
Oh God.
But now he knows what the Shark Exorcist is.
That's true.
So there you go.
He can rest easy now.
He can rest easy that there's a movie called Shark Exorcist and it's real. I bet he thought that was a fake. Somebody told him that and he was like, there's no such thing. Oh my God, there's a real movie. Donald Farmer. Who is this guy?
I'm telling you, Shark Psycho, mashup of Psycho and Jaws. Two great iconic films.
The Shining Shark.
Well, your secret's out. You shouldn't have said anything. Somebody's going to beat you to the punch.
No.
Oh, they will. How many fucking shark
ideas.
movies are there per year, being made? It's going to eventually happen, whether we make it or not.
Someone in our hundreds of thousands of listeners is going to take that idea and run with it.
Yes.
I see the light.
Hundreds of thousands of listeners.
I just got a great idea. Psycho Shark. Let's go make that.
Wow.
But oh well. If they do, they do. Sorry, That was Paul's fault. I didn't mention it.
I know.
Put that shit out in the universe. All right. Well, thank you, Paul, and thank you, Larry. So we started this show as a way to kind of because Paul made you watch these movies called Little Stinkers.
Yay!
And you and Bonnie Butler had to deal with a lot of this, a lot of these terrible movies. And Larry and I were talking.
Terrible.
Adventures in Balloon Land.
Balloon Land, fun in Balloon Land. Come on.
That was the first one.
That's not Kubrick. Hitchcockian. I don't know what it is.
Oh God.
All right.
Jeez.
Or a talking cat. I don't know.
Oh dear.
All right. Anyway. So we started off with that, and then Larry was like, "Can I watch some good movies? For a change." And
at least half good.
And we had done a video. I think it was for Film Freaks or something, but we did a little side video where we talked about Hitchcock or whatever, and my love for Hitchcock, and that the fact that you hadn't seen so many Hitchcock movies,
True.
And so I wanted to educate you on it.
And you have.
Usually you have notes because you watch these movies.
Oh yeah, I study. It's like a college class for me.
Yeah.
I have to see it twice. I have to take numerous notes and type them up like a 5-page essay. And
you didn't do that on this one, but
just
not on this one. That's
just
why,
like the Ice Cream Bunny movie.
Yeah.
5 pages of notes.
I did not take too many notes. Didn't need to. I did because that's the way I work. I write things out. But so I'll continue to do it. That's the way I work.
Well, you got pain and woe for me, but you got enjoyment with Moody.
Yeah,
and we
smooth things out.
It's started and maybe one day Paul can get you and Bonnie back together and
how about just movies that are misunderstood? Yeah.
You have to get the good with the bad. So
right.
He's
the good angel on your shoulder, and I'm the bad angel.
Right. The good movies and the stinky movie angels. But yeah, no, I'm glad you stuck this out and everything, and
Oh yeah.
you know, I know it's got to be tough to like think about real quick, but you know, obviously Psycho's probably the best of all of them, all of them, right? That we've watched. Would you say, or would you say that there was something that you
There's
liked
some
better?
that are way up there with it. Yeah.
Yeah. Suspicion, I thought was going to be my number one. Then I started watching all these other ones, and I was like,
Yeah.
actually, they're better than Suspicion. And I don't know. So
There's some prizes out there, so we'll find out
Yeah,
next
it's
season.
interesting. I mean, when you sometimes you go back and your opinions reverse. I mean, Rebecca, the first time I saw it, I was kind of meh. But after we went back and watched it, I liked it a lot better. Especially seeing it we saw it on Blu-ray, didn't we? So it looked really, really, really good.
Yeah.
But then there are other movies like I'll never really find Foreign Correspondent to be particularly interesting. So.
And we watched Psycho oh man, there's a great, I mean, at least for like the almost last scene of the movie with like a plane crash, or whatever. That is by far one of the most intense, craziest fucking scenes in the whole, like that makes the whole movie, or whatever. Sometimes Hitchcock's really good at that, like taking one scene that's so memorable that after the movie's done, you go, what, I'll always remember it for that. North by Northwest has them running around Mount Rushmore, and usually it's usually that. It's usually up on some kind of monument or whatever.
Hanging from Lincoln's nose.
Yeah, something like that, like a booger, a booger on Lincoln's nose.
That was the original title.
What?
The man who hung from Lincoln's nose.
Oh, I thought I was going to say booger on Lincoln's nose, but all right,
Well, it was a little booger.
It was a little booger.
The Klingon.
You can barely tell. Is there a snot coming out of his nose?
Oh, God.
Could you imagine if you were looking up and you're seeing somebody like falling down from there? You're like, what is that?
I'm just glad Hitchcock was able to make his movies when he did, because today it would be nothing more than freaking remakes of remakes of remakes and superhero movies and all that kind of junk.
Yeah, I don't think Hitchcock would have liked today's world. He would have because at the end of his career, he kind of stopped like doing the stuff like I think like Family Plot was his last movie, and that was like sort of a stretch from Hitchcock. It was not what and that's what Hitchcock would have continued doing, stuff like that, and it would have been just
he was going to have to leave, like Kubrick, he was going to have to leave the Hollywood system and go off on his own and make his own stuff, so he wasn't going to be interfered with.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Hollywood would have definitely interfered. The studios are not the same as they used to be.
Well, they're only interested in bottom line.
Right.
It doesn't matter about the quality.
Which sucks because like it would be great if Hollywood would change, but it literally would have to be from the inside. It would have to be people like you and me that go into the studio and say, you know what, we're gonna take some risks. See what happens, and then when the original movies, all right, and then other, studios would go, oh, they're taking risks and doing well. Let's do that.
And that's
too.
what happened in the 60s and 70s,
right?
When Hollywood became pretty moribund, especially towards the end of the 50s, and a whole new breed of directors and writers and actors came in and freshened up everything. We are at that time when we need that.
Yeah, Easy Rider, right?
Easy Rider, and then later it was Martin Scorsese and Coppola, and Steven Spielberg and people like that who just kind of came in and they all knew each other. They're all friends and they all worked on their own movies and they were all independent in a way or whatever. And they were. Because that's what you need is people.
United artists.
We have people like Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino though that don't get like fucked with. So there's that, thank God. But there's not that many Tarantinos. There's not that many Coen brothers. That still exist around today. I mean, most people are afraid to but what you have to do is you have to be like those, and you got to be like Linklater. Linklater can make a Hollywood movie, but then he can go off and make his own movie and shit and say, I don't need you Hollywood people because I'm very fine just going back to Austin, Texas and making my, Before Sunrise movies.
Right. Guillermo del Toro is the only one I can think of right now who's just an excellent, excellent actor who can pretty much do whatever he wants, and they're going to leave him alone.
Exactly. Well, do they?
For the most part.
Yeah, sort of.
They did in his original film with Mimic, but Nowadays they do. I mean, that's
Yeah,
why he
I think they kind of have a little say in stuff because I don't think he would have done Pacific Rim the way that.
Well,
you know.
yeah, for that, but most of his other movies are not really made in the Hollywood system. You know, Pan's Labyrinth wasn't. and
I know, but I'm
Devil's
talking about. I'm
Backbone
thinking more of
wasn't,
the
Kronos
those
wasn't.
right, but those are like his earlier works. I'm talking about his stuff now, and his stuff now is like. What was that? What was that mermaid movie he did, or whatever thing? I don't remember. It was like that. That was a studio movie, and as artfully and beautifully as shot as that was, that didn't feel like a Del Toro total like. That's not Kronos.
We should
or,
talk about that sometime on another show.
Yeah, we should Film Freaks or something or one of those shows. But yes, so let's get to that. So Paul and I have Indie Film Cafe, but we also have Film Freaks. We'll eventually bring back Criteria Watch. Quick Review Thursday. What else? What the Fuck Fridays. Shark Attack Saturdays.
Forgotten Horror Classics.
Shark Attack Sundays. Short Film Saturdays.
Right.
Like we got a lot of.
Forgotten Horror Classics, and then Sexploitation Sleazecast.
Those are his ones.
And then we've got a couple other ones that are incubating that we'll talk about later on.
Do you ever sleep?
No.
No. Actually, we will pretty soon.
Once you're dead.
No, once you head back out, I think we're taking. Well, he's taking more of a break. I still got 90s horror film podcasts to do, a few of those, and
this is what happens when you don't have a life or a family or any of that other kind of stuff.
Yeah, you don't have a girlfriend. You just make these, things.
Sit
Then
in
you
my
get a
mom's
girlfriend,
basement
and
watch movies.
things start,
Your
changing.
mother down in the basement.
Oh,
God.
mother! No.
I was wondering who that woman was in the window.
Shh.
I thought it was Sarah, but I knew it was
See,
not.
you thought I was dressing up in a moo because I like cows.
No.
Oh, God.
Yeah. I do know you like the word moo.
See, Gilbert, you can go back to Hollywood and tell everybody there about the weird couple of guys out in Virginia that you're making films with.
Well, I'll tell them to tune into this.
Tune into this episode. I think this is a great episode for it. I mean, I think we've dissected Psycho as well as you can, because one of the other reasons I don't like doing movies like this or whatever for this is they're done to death. So many people have talked about this film and, probably have done like a million research stuff on it, and they know everything more than we do. And we kind of just wanted to do stuff where we just give you kind of our thoughts on it, or whatever. We don't need to do so much research. Now, I like it when you do because I already know a lot of this stuff from it. But it's just nice, to kind of do it. So thank you. Yeah. I love this season. We'll be back in March, for a brand new season. I don't even know what we're doing yet, but I'm glad to be picking them. If there's one particular you want to see, Larry, like specifically, let me know, and we'll put that on the list.
Okay.
But I can't wait. This is going to be a lot of fun. And we're going to be doing some Criterion ones too. I'm sure. So, and once again, we may still do it on Criterion Watch. I'm okay with that because there's different perspectives.
You could do Zoom, can't you?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, maybe we'll get you on a couple of Criterion Watch films to show you we do actually like some good films too. And we'll have you on Zoom.
Great.
Yeah, because I think even though you must have loved The Void, I'm having this feeling that Larry didn't have the same.
Well, I was half asleep, and I kept thinking I was having nightmares.
When you woke up?
Like, oh, shit.
Oh, it's the movie's very much a nightmare.
I just...
So, but so he watches something like this, and he's like, oh, wow.
It's cosmic horror, so there's a lot of flesh warping. And a lot
it's
of
just hideous.
Crazy.
Monsters.
Yes, hideousnous.
Oh, God.
Hideous monsters. Well, there you go.
Very much
Too
a nightmare.
gory. I just...
H.P. Lovecraftian, I'm guessing.
Yeah, kind of like Lovecraft.
Yeah. So, well, all right. Well, thank you so much, guys. Sure. We will be back in March. We're really excited, but we're also probably excited to take a little bit of a break.
Yeah.
But we'll get back to it then. So, we'll keep you guys in tuned, and we'll let you know how everything's going.
All right.
So,
happy holidays.
Bye.
Bye.